We are now ready to continue, and it's an honor for me to introduce our two next speakers. First of all, Ms. Nicola Spafford Furey, who is Vice President of the Earthfocus Foundation. Ms. Furey has been involved in environmental issues for much of her career. She worked for the Consulate of Belize in Geneva for 11 years, from 1990 until 2011, spearheading a program which saved 500,000 acres of rainforest in Belize and promoting tourism to the country. She's also served as Secretary General of the Consular Corps of Geneva between 1995 and 2001. In 2005, Ms. Furey took on her current role as Vice President of the Earthfocus Foundation. The organization aims to empower youth to take on roles in which they actively create a more sustainable world, providing a platform for young people to express their views on the environment and to propose solutions for ecological problems. The presentation will be a joint presentation together with Martin Endersek, who's project manager at the Earthfocus Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic that they've chosen, warm welcome. The topic that they've chosen is Earthfocus inspiring, empowering, and giving a voice to youth to bring about positive change. And now maybe a second round of applause, if we can, for Martin Endersek and Nicola Furey. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is a great compliment to be here. Thank you for the intercultural diplomacy. Oh, sorry, yes, is that right? Okay. And we will let you know what we do. So the aims of the Earthfocus Foundation are to raise awareness and action to all that sustainable development means with young people and others. The first project under Earthfocus was a role-playing debate with older primary students, 12-year-olds. The subject was the rainforest. They dressed up as indigenous people, environmentalists, dam builders, and miners with yellow hats on. And the young man in the suit and tie and a big briefcase who took out a piece of paper and said, "And I'm from the World Bank and I have the check." So the debate was what to do with the offer. The majority decision was to refuse and keep their rainforests pristine for their and their children's future. Founded in 2005, after the closing of the very active, well-known Bell Reef Foundation, which had been working on the same lines, the Earthfocus Foundation has worked in many ways to achieve these aims, to empower young people, listen to them, and help them to be heard, to provide life learning. From publications, of which we have several, by young people, for young people, and conferences, visits, mapping for sustainable development, green maps, and much more. So as we know, sustainable development covers the social, economic, and environment. An understanding of sustainable development issues is extremely important in the 21st century, in every sphere of life. Issues related to sustainable development are increasingly being acknowledged in the media, but are not being given as much attention as is required. In general, there is a lack of knowledge and understanding about the complexities of our world, including the interconnectedness between economic, social, and environmental issues. Children are the future of our planet. They need to have access to knowledge about sustainable development so as to understand the necessity of economic viability, social equity, and environmental protection in the present day. However, millions of children all over the world do not have the opportunity to learn about sustainable development issues, either because they are locationally disadvantaged or because their schools do not incorporate sustainable development into the curriculum. This should not be the case. The information exists, and so the means to share this information and knowledge with them, e-learning, electronic communications, all the new tools we have. There's a wealth of information about sustainable development issues available to teachers, but at present it is not incorporated into most classes for various reasons, including they're not required to do so. Many teachers don't understand what sustainable development is and are intimidated by the term. A lack of organized, coherent body of information about sustainable development. Time and monetary constraints. Teachers often do not have the time to learn about the subject themselves, and so subsequently incorporate it into their lesson plans. There's an urgent need to bring all of this information under one umbrella, using the expertise of various organizations, specialists, and then to reproduce it in format which is attractive to both children and teachers. This would make it easy for teachers to convey the information, so they don't need to spend their own free time doing this, which is unlikely to happen anyway. Geneva is the perfect location for such a program, where it should be initiated. It is the home for a large number of international, environmental, economic, and humanitarian organizations which could contribute significantly to the development of the program. The city, the region, is internationally renowned for its role as a world leader in these issues. It is centrally located in Europe and provides an excellent base for partner schools to visit and be involved, as well as from afar. With so much need for change and awareness, these aims need to be developed with new forms of communication that can be shared worldwide by many. The Earthfocus Foundation is conscious of the serious difficulties that are facing young people worldwide at all levels of society. Knowing the extraordinary potential of youth, the Earthfocus Foundation aims to raise awareness around the world for sustainable development and human rights by empowering them and obtaining their engagement for these causes, so that they act now to create a fairer, livable world for themselves and the next generations. We are determined to be an agent for learning for life. The Earthfocus Foundation pursues this goal by creating a platform for youth to express themselves, interact with experts, and be heard by society in general and authorities in particular, by providing tools and experience. We are concerned to establish sound possibilities for young people that will lead to educational, profitable, commercial, and economic relationships to develop their futures. We are convinced that the opportunity for communication with young people worldwide, all interested or involved in sustainable development and human rights, wishing to learn, share, and act together, will bring change socially and economically by bold and true reforms. We are certain that learning for life through knowledge, skills, training, and experience is the way forward for all societies, and we are sure that we offer an original approach for a new venture for change. The feeling of exclusion that has recently led to Occupy, Les Indignés, Time for Outrage, from the brave example of the late Stefan Hessel and more, can be traced in all countries, democratic and others, to the inadequacies of the educational systems. We need to empower young people, listen to them, and help them to be heard. This is what the late Prince Sadruddin Aga Khan said in 1992. He was the founder of the Bellevue Foundation. To change the leaders, we must change the educational systems worldwide. There needs to be learning for life and not just exams and certificates. Human beings will protect what they love. If they have not learnt to love nature, their neighbour, and our planet, how will we survive with more and more millions? According to Peter H. Diamandis and Stephen Kotler in their book Abundance, there is easily enough for all, which they explain. And Sir Richard Branson, who read the book, says abundance provides proof that the proper combination of technology, people, and capital can meet any grand challenge. Educational systems worldwide are really in the hands of people who are able to accept and make change. The new generations are more aware than their elders will admit. More time is spent teaching history than ethics, empathy, respect, and tools for the present and the future. Young people are being presented with catastrophic situations. The meetings such as Rio +20 are proving that the present deciders are not very capable. 20 years later, after Rio 92, where is sustainability? Why has the Brundtland Commission been ignored? Why is there still a lack of clean water and sanitation when international organizations have been fixing it for over 60 years. Poverty is mostly in overcrowded cities. People have been taken off their land, so there is hunger. Millions worldwide now have no idea how to plant or harvest. Rivers, oceans, and land are poisoned with garbage, as we just saw. The new tools that are available for so many, International Telecommunications Union, the ITU, is working on providing broadband for another or over 60 developing countries. This will surely change learning. The boy in Kenya, tending his sheep, already has a telephone, but he cannot go to school. The children in the slums in India who taught themselves how to use the computer, if they could receive learning for life information, respect for the environment, humanity, and more, this could inform young people worldwide. They could learn together. Surely this would bring a change. Business could help to change the thinking of their shareholders if the shareholders and the public accepted ethics and empathy. Wherever nature is destroyed for greed, suffering follows. Climate change has been created by not using the knowledge that has existed. Alternative energies, for example, instead of whatever brought in the big profits. With the speed of communication that shared the feelings of the indignados and Occupy, learning for life could be spread and shared worldwide to make a sustainable and living planet. An aware and responsible world population will keep the wheels of production turning as long as there is respect and something for everyone, however small. Those that have two could do with one. Those that have none could do with one or more. We are all different, but living more versus having more could become very popular for people with knowledge and the possibilities to learn more. To share and promote these projects, we work with several organizations, one called Seeds, with Mr. Carl Bretness, to develop business cooperatives for young graduates in Benin, and finally for others. This is a social project with IBOR as an International Bill of Rights, which is an association of leading human rights lawyers. For economics and Earthfocus investing with Mr. Kevin Fox to help understanding business and money for young people, sometimes very incomprehensible for them. And for the environment, Earthfocus Carbon Project, for students to calculate carbon emissions from the large companies that have announced on the Global 500 their statistics, and are they really true? The green maps, mapping for sustainable development, a think global, map local, using icons as an international language, maps of Geneva communities, and working with schools and students to raise awareness, again, to sustainable development. And we are working towards Alp Action, a program that was very active, and somebody here knows it well, announced in the World Economic Forum in 1990, and doing a lot for the mountains above all the Alps, reintroduction of the bearded vulture, education with children, saving wetlands, and different things. And we now would like to develop and raise awareness to the mountains and the value of mountains with young people who many go skiing, and for them mountains are only white. They have no idea what's underneath and what it means. So our local actions in Geneva and Switzerland, we take part in local activities, arrange conferences, work with students in Geneva from the state and the private schools as much as possible to bring them together. We arrange visits for foreign students to attend conferences, visit the international organizations, and have the experience of Geneva and Switzerland. In December, a group of students came from the Aga Khan Academy of Mombasa. They visited the UN, CERN, the European University, took part in the conference, IBOR, the International Bill of Rights, with the expert lawyers, and they visited the mountains. This is the 5th year that a group of students has come from Geneva, and it's wonderful to see the faces of the people who have never seen snow. With this experience, we'd like to develop more visits on a regular basis for school and university students. We hope to arrange a conference a Global Youth Conference in conjunction with the European University in November, and December the 10th, Human Rights Day, we will have the conference and debate with IBOR. Building on our past success and experiences, we are expanding and developing new and existing projects to empower youth. So now let me pass the word to Martin, who will tell you about our present project and the new strategy. Martin.
Should I go this side?
If you wish. I'll just take my green map, 'cause I've got one.
Thank you. Since the Foundation's origins in '92, the world has undergone immense changes. Perhaps the most significant is the revolutionary growth of internet-based communications. To keep up to date with these changes, existing as well as new projects are now being planned to maximize our impact in the sustainable development field. The first of these is our ongoing development of a world portal for sustainable development. After almost 20 years of publishing the magazine and successfully sharing it with the world, and often receiving more contributions than we can publish, we have taken the decision to move on to the online platform to actually be able to share it with even more people worldwide. Over the years, we have created multiple partnerships with schools, universities, and organizations, which have also contributed materials and unique sources of information, which we also shared with communities in Africa, in Europe, in the States. And the portal seeks to replace this magazine by actually being able to take all these contributions and share it in a much more effective and accessible way. This is a concept of the portal. That was one of the first ideas. It's moved a little bit beyond this, but we're now working with developers to actually integrate it into a real online platform, which we hope to have by the end of the year. One project which I am really quite proud of is the Green Maps initiative, which, as Nicola has mentioned, it's not always easy to get the education system to change, to apply sustainable development programs in their school systems. So with this project, we bring the change to them. First, we go into the classroom and present on the subject of sustainable development, give children and kids in these schools a basic understanding what sustainable development means. And then to not just be speaking and doing presentations, we encourage them to go, we actually do take them out into their local communities, to go into their neighborhoods and try and find elements. So this could be solar panels, recycling stations, businesses which are socially orientated, and each time they find one of these points which is connected to sustainable development, they put a little icon on that point on the map. Eventually, we take all these contributions and we make a Google-based map which is accessible for everyone, including the businesses, which actually promotes their interests as well. And the really unique thing with this is that it's the youth which is approaching business, which is approaching industries, and going into the offices and asking them, what are you doing for sustainable development? What steps have you taken to be cleaner, more, less polluting, releasing less carbon? After mapping several neighborhoods in Geneva, as well as a few towns in the mountains, we've decided to take the next step and actually do entire cities in sections. So this is a project we really want to develop even further and get more people engaged and really spread it around, because it's a worldwide initiative which is present in many countries all over the world. Having lived in Geneva for some time, you hear a lot of people criticizing the UN, that it's inefficient, that there's a huge bureaucracy, that it's not achieving its goals, which it might be, but there's also a lot of good being done. And what doesn't get presented or talked about as much is the multiple initiatives which exist in different regions of the world which actually seek to reform the UN, to strengthen the systems. Not just the UN, but in particular human rights protection mechanisms, which are in place to monitor and to try and enforce human rights treaties which states have signed. In order for these international mechanisms, such as the Human Rights Council, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, to be more effective at monitoring and actually implementing and getting states to ratify these treaties, we need the public, we need the citizens to actually apply pressure on their governments to encourage these reform processes. Because on its own, UN institutions cannot change. The only way for them to change is by states actually applying pressure or being supportive of change. Because often it's not in the state's interest to have effective human rights protection mechanisms. So, this year, on December the 10th, which is International Human Rights Day, we will be partnering with a new initiative called the Future of Human Rights Forum, which seeks to actually bring all these initiatives together and promote them with the public, with media, and with states to actually bring to attention all these brilliant ideas which are out there to actually improve the existing system, to ensure that these rights which many countries have signed are enforced. So some of these initiatives, to give you a few examples, one of them is an initiative to add the destruction of the environment as a crime against humanity. Another example is actually to bring the human right to peace and add it to the list of human rights. And finally, there's an association called IBOR, which has been working for several years to try and actually bring all the, I don't know how much you know about the UN system, but there's a lot of treaty bodies, which means there's a covenant against torture, civil and political rights, and it's separated into many treaties which states sign one by one. And each of these treaties has its own mechanisms. So the idea behind this association is to condense it into one simple and easy to follow document. Finally, our last program that we want to develop, and we're actively working on this and laying the groundwork to hopefully start it at the end of this year as well, is actually a program to make a recycling center in Ukraine, which would be a pilot project to try and actually replicate this in other cities and raise awareness. Because many regions, in Europe, we're very, very used to recycling in Western Europe, to separating our glass and all of these things. But in many places all over the world, it's what we've actually heard this a few times with other presenters, that people don't have the habit and don't see a problem with just throwing things out into nature. And as we know, the water washes it down and eventually it goes into other countries and the sea. So that's some of the things we want to develop in the future, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I already have a number of ideas for our possible collaboration, which I look forward to talking to you both about. But before, I'd be happy to take questions and comments. Okay.
Hi. First, I thank you for this joint presentation. It was so impressive, and the images were also fine. My name is Serjan. I'm one of the master students here. I was going to ask you about the images that you show. One of the first images. Could you go back there?
Which one?
First or second? It was so at the
first
beginning.
slide or second slide?
Yeah, just go. I guess I'm gonna see it. Yeah, this one. Next one. Next one. Next one.
This one or this one?
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
What is this photo about? I was going to ask because.
This is one of our Earthfocus magazines that we sent to the Wiser School for Girls in Kenya. And the Wiser School was founded by a young American student who, in his university, the teacher was tied up with a teacher in Kenya, a university teacher, and they were working out the statistics for a program. And he was invited to go to Kenya and take these statistics. And he was so amazed with this woman who said, well, I never went to school. I ran away to Nairobi and I did all this education, and she was a teacher in the university. And he decided, aged 20 or something, to go home, make money, and make a school in this village in Kenya. So, and he came and presented at one of our conferences. And of course, he's very good looking, tall, blonde with blue eyes, so all the girls were like this. But he did this wonderful job and sent us back this photograph.
So did these children read this about this magazine and your considerations? They know about it?
Yes, these children have seen the magazine.
Okay.
They had several sent to them.
And do they able to reach the clean water sources also?
Well, I think his whole idea is this school that really changes the thinking, yes. In parts of Kenya, you know, for example, the Mombasa school, it is the Aga Khan school, but they do a lot of work. They have to do these projects for the International Baccalaureate, and one thing they do is they play football with the blind. Now, it's played in the dark, so that everybody has the same system, and they have beans in the football, because then the blind people can hear it. But the blind team discovered that if they took out a few beans, the others couldn't hear it. And so they won. These projects do happen.
But your question was, do they have access to clean water?
Yeah.
Oh,
Basically.
yes.
Yes. But I mean, to make it very clear, what we do is we started off with a magazine in '92, okay? And then we were kept going. We're getting more schools involved for students to actually write articles about environmental issues and social issues which concern them. And we took these articles and we were publishing this magazine and then trying to share it again with as many schools as possible. So we're not, a charity or an NGO, which is actually...
What I mean is I
Yeah.
wouldn't care,
Yeah.
I wouldn't give anything, I'll say, about the sustainable development or environment, anything if I don't have like the most human things like food and drink. I wouldn't care. I would say, oh, can I eat this magazine? I wouldn't even read it. So what my consideration is, if you want to, it's just a statement, no offense. If you want to create a change, you have to be sure that every human has the basic human rights on the world. It depends from country to country. Then you could say, we are here to make a change. And you could say then, 99% is awake. I mean, if you give me another 1%, I would conquer the whole world. So, couple of people, enough to make a revolution. So what I mean is, in these conditions, you could have some trouble to spread these ideas. Thank you.
Well, don't you think that in some of these areas, very poor areas, if the young people and the population knew what was their right, knew they had a right to clean water, they would be much more able to procure it. The trouble is that there's so much ignorance, and of course it's a good thing to keep the people ignorant. Governments can work much better with ignorant populations.
But you know,
this is what we don't want.
By knowing, you cannot change anything.
I would
you have to have the courage to change anything. I know these politicians and everything is so corrupted, but I am not doing anything to change it because I have to have some sources in order to do this, some armed forces or something.
I can give you.
If we all got together, we'd change it, wouldn't we?
I can give you a specific example, which I don't know specifically about this case, but I mean I went to the international school in Geneva, and we had we read this magazine. You hear about issues with, for example, there's a school in in Brazil, kids which I don't know exactly the thing, but you had actually fundraising events organized by the students themselves to solve a particular issue. So they would organize an event, raise money to go and make a well, build a school, these kinds of things. Why did kids actually give money and try and raise money? Because they read about it and they knew about it, and there were students on the other side of the world which said, this is what we need, this is what we're lacking. So information, I believe, is the key. Because if you don't know what's happening, you're not going to do anything about it. So it starts with that.
Who at 12 years old, he learned that people in Africa didn't have water, clean water. And he raised millions. He's organized to dig, I don't know how many wells in Africa, because at 12 years old he learned that, and he felt so badly about it, said he was going to do something, and he's still doing it. And these are the sparks that they need to know there's some support for their sparks.
I respect your opinions, but I disagree, I have to say.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. I'm interested in how youth can participate in writing some of these articles for the actual magazine. Obviously, we were talking about ideas earlier today, and we see a huge opportunity of collaboration where we can, not necessarily leverage, but use these different groups in order to help write content. So how can we actually go about doing that?
Well, we communicate with schools. They write articles. Individuals. For example, we've just had an American intern. Sorry. Excuse me. We communicate with the schools, some around the world. They write articles, send them to us. We've just had a young girl, American intern. She's gone to visit certain organizations in Geneva and will write up about what they do. So they're sharing that kind of knowledge. But, if you want to write articles, your students,
sure.
If you have other people all on your campuses could write about what you're doing, we can share it. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds like an awesome opportunity.
Idea for ideas.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to put it back?
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? So my question is, when you do the workshops in schools, do you do also follow-up afterwards, like next year or something? Do you make sure that teachers do follow your workshops?
Well, we try.
We try. Usually the way it works, it's over, let's say, like a week period. So we come in for a few days, let's say 5 days for a whole week, or sometimes it's one day a week spaced over a month. So we come in and the first day is more or less a presentation, a background, so they understand what sustainable development is. It's already quite hard. You have to understand this is in Switzerland. It's not always so easy to get a program like this into public schools. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of fences you have to jump over. But yeah, it takes about 5 days, and then actually 4 days we take them out into their neighborhood to actually be on the ground and be searching for it, because it's much more interesting to be doing things yourself, writing, putting icons on a map, and communicating with people and asking people, what are you doing? We're doing this project. We want to put icons on our regional map to show, all the places which are doing something positive for the environment. So the follow-up is that next year we try and do it again with the same class, but which is another group of students. So.
Well, thank you very much. We have to move on. Please, show of hands. Thank you.